Five things learnt for round 20. There was plenty of great action out there. Obviously, a few of the top guns returning and a few teams really stepping up and finally getting the job done, especially from the defensive end. And we speak about the importance of some of the great halves that have returned this week as well in Reynolds and Fogarty. Go through the ladder, my fancy tip of the week. And yeah, we did usually do this on a Sunday night, but we're a little bit different today. And then we'll get the round results out. We aren't currently at lockout lift, but I imagine by the time I finish this video, we will be there. So let's kick things off with the Cowboys finally proving my point from the start of the year. And just as, obviously a Cowboys fan, I watch them very closely and just see the trends, especially with how they play attack. Obviously, that's the easier one for them, but the defensive side. And when they've made the final in 2020, whatever it was, 2021, 2021, 2017 did really well, obviously as well. Made the prelim in 21, grand final in 17, and when they won, obviously as well, that their defense was really, really good. And what we obviously saw here from them in this game against the Dogs was playing their game, the Dogs game there of just playing really good defense. And obviously Cowboys came in over the top with a cracking play from Tom Did, and that's where the Origin players and their skills and their poise rings through. And that's exactly what the Cowboys need, and that's when they do really well, because they have 6 Origin players, right? One of them didn't play, Mario Talangi, on the weekend, but they have the pedigree, they have the talent. It's just putting it all together, and to only allow 3 tries there from the Dogs and get a win in this type of game. Previously they would have lost 30-20 because they just weren't able to keep teams at bay. So that was a very, very important lesson learned from the Cowboys over the last sort of 6 to 8 weeks. They've played so much better. They've been able to beat a few good teams, that is, in that top 5 there, which Doggies are in that top 5 or 6. And yeah, I think that's the third team that they've beat in that time, which has been really, really impressive. So just wanted to shout the Cowboys out for showing that they can play some defense. And now that puts them into a little bit of a spot in that top 8 where they're a little bit safer in it. They've still got the one bye to come, and they can build off that. If they can continue to develop this defensive system that they are showing and demonstrating over the last couple of, last month or so, they can go up against any team. And you saw that with the Manly boys as well, which we'll get into in a sec. But firstly, I did want to focus on Reynolds and Fogarty and their importance, obviously, to their sides individually. And just, the importance of great organising halves in general. So the Raiders have been really, really struggling without Fogarty, and they kind of had a little bit of a run in their first few games when Weeks was playing incredible and doing great things there. It was a little bit of a different look for him. Strange sort of came into his own, and Rapiner was doing good things at the back, and they were just kind of fighting and clawing for victories there. And then it kind of fell away a bit. Their defense wasn't as good, and I think it's just hard to stay up for that long when you haven't got the pure 7, which Weeks isn't. He's a little bit more of a running 6 or a fullback. So they did fall off a cliff a little bit, but then they've come back. I did actually tip them this week, which was good. And that's just the massive return of Jamal Fogarty. And then guys like Zach Hosking, who are so starchy and so good through the edge there, can play some middle and help out with their defensive line as well. So Fogarty, just as the biggest thing with these good 7s is just their direction, right? They good talkers on the field. They kick into certain spots. They direct where a play needs to go. They want to get to a left or right hand post most of the time before they can make their swing to left or right. You saw guys like Xavier Savage come into their own again and get opportunities to score. So things just open up. You got a nice couple of tries for Hudson Young on that left hand side. And you even saw that in the Cowboys game as well, with Helam Lukey getting a couple of good tries off, Did inside there as well. So it just shows the importance for him. And then Broncos, it was kind of a bit of a perfect storm. We had all of the Origin guys backing up except Cowboy, and you did have Adam Reynolds returning as well. And we know that he was just such a winner. It has been across his career. With the Bunnies, came over to the Broncos. They do incredibly well. Obviously, get well into the 8, fall out of that in the first year, make the grand final. And here they were doing great before, well, really solidly anyway. They had a few little chinks in their armor, and as soon as he went down injured, that just exploded, and there was so many chinks and so many holes in that bucket. You couldn't clean it up and close off those holes there. So him returning I said, coincided with everyone coming back and playing, but he just shows so much class and gets them around the park and gets guys like Walsh into space, the space that he needs. And he was performing incredibly well at the beginning of the year, Reece Walsh. And since Reynolds come back, he obviously had a cracker in that game there against the Knights. And then the Knights are struggling a little bit at the moment. So, as I said, it was kind of a perfect storm for those two guys there and those teams. But big wins. And then Storm, they're a big threat if they play defense. And that's something that they just haven't been able to do this year. They keep winning games where they're just outscoring their opponents. And yes, the Roosters didn't play that well, but the Storm didn't allow them to. It's a two-horse race there. Both sides have their problems there to coincide with a full game of footy. So the Storm only allowed 2 tries there for the Roosters. I think Walker missed both of them there in that one. And if they can do that on a week-to-week basis, they can actually win this comp. If this is just a flash in the pan, I don't think they can win. I don't think they're going to be able to beat Roosters when they actually play really well. I don't think they're going to be able to beat the Panthers as well. So they're still a top 3 team. And this effort here, it was one of their most complete performances. You could tell, like just seeing Bellamy's face, hearing him talk post-game to the boys, like Matty Johns and the boys there. It was awesome. It's exactly what he wanted, because you never see him smiling, even if they win. You can just, he's got these standards and these processes they put in place, and the boys haven't been able to uphold to them as yet, even though they're winning games. Just such a good system. But yeah, very, very cool to see from the Storm. A great fun team to watch, especially when Munster comes back either this week or next. Number 4, beware of Manly. And then the Stars returned. How good. So obviously yesterday was a fun game to watch, a fun couple of games to watch. You had Cleary getting that winning field goal. So just so good to see him play. He's just got so much talent and can do it across, in all ways. Sometimes it's his defense. Sometimes it's, him directing them around the kicking game. And then sometimes he just has individual brilliance plays. And that's what he had with that, that lovely offload over the top on the left. And then that field goal in his return game, which is incredible. So good stuff to him and the Panthers. But the real one here was the Eagles. And, Titans have been winning games and they've been playing really well. And the Eagles made them look like a second-rate team. They've been playing, but they have been winning games without Brimson, so you can't blame it on AJ. You had a really good game from both Moore. Campbell and Foran just weren't able to get into things, and Keeney had one line break without anything else further from that. So this was an absolute masterclass from Tom Trbojevic, and we know that if he's on as this, we'll call him a returning star as well, given he's come back from, it's his 3rd game back from injuries, but the last 2 games he's been really, really good. After that warm-up game in the centres a few weeks ago. So if he can continue to do good things, if Brooks can start playing better like he has the last few with DCE running the show, and they get a couple of guys back. If Lockie Croker returns in the next few weeks, it's going to be helpful. They had Taniela Paseka returning this game. That's all great news for them, and they can really build into this season with, obviously they do lose Lehigh Hopewade, but they'll get Kohler back soon. They'll be able to cover that wing spot, obviously. Tommy Talau's playing great footy. So there's plenty of good things happening for this side. And they can push into that top 8 and do great things as well. So now that we've spoken about all that, let's get in and check out that ladder. And mention the Seagulls. Congrats to them. They obviously go over the top of the Bulldogs here after their loss. And the Cowboys are stuck, have moved solidly into 8th position. Dragons had a bye, so they moved up to 24 points. And the Cowboys obviously keep their spot on the ladder where they were last week. But they do have 10 wins, so they have an extra win on top of the Doggies and the Dolphins, and the same as the Eagles. So very, very close from where the Eagles are at 25 points. Even the Roosters at 26, but let's say the Eagles there with 10 wins, because the Roosters have that one extra win at the moment, all the way down to where the Raiders are in 10th, who are 2 points behind that of the Dragons. So it's very, very close through the mid part there with Eagles, Dogs, Dolphins, and Cowboys. And I do think with the way teams are playing at the moment, these 4 teams deserve to be in that spot there. That loss for the Warriors on the weekend was very, very hurtful. If they had won that, they would have moved to 21 and would be ahead of the Broncos there. And actually, they would have been 10th there, given it was against the Raiders. So that's a massive loss for them. And yes, they could have gone on a run and made the 8. And a few people told me about that. They just aren't playing well enough, in my opinion. And yes, they have SJ back, but they don't get too many other guys back with Tohu out for the season. Broncos, get Adam Reynolds back, and we know how important he is right now, where SJ's played a lot of this season, and they've they've been poor at times when he's been there, so it doesn't feel like him coming back is the massive ignition that they need. Whereas the Broncos with Reynolds is so huge for them. As we can see, they were in the right up here, and then all the way down to sort of 13th or 12th with Reynolds out of the side. So that's where they're obviously a dark horse to come up and try and steal a spot in that top 8. And at the moment, all the other teams are in a little bit of trouble. Obviously, Bunny's got a good win there. They need to keep winning until Latrell comes back, and then hopefully go on a bit of a run. Raiders obviously got a win there, and they'll be in and around fighting for that 8 along with the Dragons there. But again, Warriors, now that they're up that extra point behind Broncos, Rabbitohs, and Knights, it's going to make it a little bit tough for them to push back into this 8. But hopefully they do, as well as Titans fighting down there. If they got that win, then they're into sort of 11th or 12th place, which moves them up very, very quickly. But then the top 4, it's very well set at the moment. Storm up top, 4 points clear, along with Panthers, who are 2 points clear of Sharks, into Roosters. So none of those guys on the same points right now. And I do expect these 4 teams to stay very, very, very similar in that top 4. And then these sort of 5 or 6 teams to fight for that bottom, or 6 teams there to fight for that bottom 4, you'd imagine. So it's a fun little ladder at the moment. Cowboys, my team, will be fighting to get into a 5th or 6th spot, I think. And obviously they are only a game behind the Roosters as well in 4th. But just the way that they're playing, that Manly clash, Roosters versus Manly next week, is going to be so much fun for sure. Cowboys come up against the Sharkies. Dolphins have Titans. I really want to win there. They played well enough to beat the Cleary, beat the Panthers there. Doggies up against Broncos. It's going to be such a massive clash too. So these games next week are going to be hectic, and I can't wait for them. That's for sure. Let's have a quick check and see if the lockout has been lifted while we're here as well, before we get into the fantasy little checkup. All right, nothing has gone through yet. End up at 892, so that's pretty fun. We'll get into the round results very, very soon. But fantasy tip of the week there. Last week we spoke about just going nuts, having a bit of fun. There was a lot of injuries that came up, and I just mentioned just trading out injured guys, bringing guys with a good injury history was the question. And I ended up trading in someone that's injury history is good this year. Oh, he's had a throat injury this year, which is wild in itself, but he had to move around 4 injuries, which is the irony of that one. But it's pretty simple in round 20 just to get close to 17. Enjoy watching the superstars returning to normal footy as we're near finals. That was correct. But this week, I think with if you used 3 or 4 trades last week, if you're sitting anywhere between 4 and sort of 6, 7, 8, only upgrade for 15 plus point improvement. So it could be upgrading a cheaper guy to Tom Starling, right? That could be a 15 plus point improvement if he's somewhere in the 45 to 50 range long term. And then it could be upgrading one of these guys that's struggling, if you can get a Weeks or a Wishart, who's going to lose his spot soon, up to a Cleary. That's clearly a 15 plus point improvement. Going one of those guys to a Payne Haas, these types of upgrades is the only way I'd do it. But sideways, sort of at the same price movements, unless they're injured, like if you're going a 600k guy to like Josh Curran, something like that, then that obviously works. But if they're not injured, I just think you're going to lose out in the end, in the back end, just with, yes, they might score a little bit more, 5 to 10 points more on a regular basis, but the lack of trades in the last 3 or 4 rounds is going to hurt you in that point. But unless you're sitting with sort of, I reckon, 9, 10 plus trades, you obviously have a little bit more freedom to make these kind of moves. If someone's kind of on the downslide struggling, you could sideways swap them to another guy in a similar price point. You could do that. You can muck around with different things like that, or potentially go for a cash out or something like that if you wanted to, but only if you have that sort of 1.5 trades a week or something like that. So there you go, guys. That's we're keeping it simple for this week. The fantasy tip of the week and the 5 things I learned from round 20. We get into normal programming now for the back 7 rounds of the year. Thanks so much again for checking into these videos on a weekly basis. Your guys' help over this last 7 rounds just makes things easier for me to continue getting up and making these videos, especially when the views start dropping off. So if you can stick around a little bit, you're all absolute legends, and enjoy obviously using your trades over the next few weeks. Try not to go too nuts with them now that we've already made the big upgrades this week. And I just wish you best of luck with your results this week. Hopefully your rank sort of moved in the right direction, and we'll check out that video in the next couple of hours. I'll obviously get into it and then post it later tonight. So thanks so much, team. We'll catch you in the next one.